Okay, I believe we're recording. Um, Hello and welcome to the Hoover Public Library Sci-Fi Fantasy Fest virtual edition. My name is James Palmer, and I am your host this evening for a panel on income streams for authors. So I'm just going to start down the line here and let everybody introduce themselves. Bobby, you want to go first?
Sure. Hi, Bobby Nash. I'm a author. I write all kinds of stuff. Comics, novels, short stories, a lot of action adventure type stuff.
Cool. And Russell.
I'm a USA Today best-selling author. I do fantasy stuff in comics and novels, and I speak around the country at conventions and such. Or I did back in the before times.
Right, right. As did we all.
And William.
And Teal.
Hi, I'm Teal James Glenn. I write pretty much everything but laundry lists, and short stories, novels, screenplays, plays, and I have written comics, but mostly I drew comics a long time ago as well.
Awesome. And you do something else that's pretty cool too, with the sword slinging and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm a fight choreographer and a stuntman. Actually, I just got cast as the Spellbinder in a new film, and I did 60 Renaissance fairs I've done so far. I've been in over 300 TV episodes, most of them soap operas, and a lot of really bad movies that show up on like Cinemax late at night and USA Cable.
Those are my favorite.
Hey, you know, I love B movies more than A movies, frankly. I think it takes more imagination. But all that goes into my writing, so you know.
Yeah,
it's all cool. Fodder.
Yeah. I guess we'll just get started. This is about income streams for authors, but let's define some terms. What do we mean when we say income streams? What does that mean to you guys?
Well, for me, it means different ways that you can support your sad addiction to making words. You know, it's selling to, I guess the term now would be different platforms, different places that you can put your words or that would use your skill at writing in a way that supports the other skills that you want to do.
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's income streams. You know, the first thing you think of is money, obviously, but you know, with your sales and everything. So, yeah, how can I not only make a little money to, like, I don't know, occasionally buy a hamburger, but also how do I make enough money to pay for the next book I'm doing?
Wait a minute. You can afford to buy hamburgers, or you're
at least once a year.
Bobby's bougie.
Yeah. There's nothing on the hamburger. It's just the hamburger, you know.
That would be lifestyles of the rich and famous.
Yeah, I'm working my way toward like lettuce and tomato and cheese.
Oh, I read some of your stuff. Cheese.
Yes, I have to supply my own.
We make our own cheese here at the Pulp Factory.
That's right.
Russell, what about you?
It's hard because I agree with what Teal and Bobby said, but like, as I also own a Verizon dealership and I run a publishing company and I edit people's stuff, like, I think of income streams as not like a full-time job can be an income stream. You know, it's anything that you can do to support the writing that you do. I mean, for me, it's nice because, you know, I make my living mostly as a writer and less from the Verizon dealership every year. But, you know, the first years that I was doing this, you know, I started this in 2015 and that Verizon dealership like kept me in business for 2 years. And I've been able to, and then like doing editing kept me in business for another 2 years until like, it's really only been in the last 2 years, 2.5 years that I've been able to like say, yes, I'm making most of my living as a writer, not as a speaker or a course creator. I own a teaching academy. So like all of those things went to go into like making the work, and the work also matters. But I think that a lot of times when people think of their writing, they're not thinking broad enough, they're not thinking big enough, and they're not thinking of like all of the things. I mean, you listed Teal stuff like fight choreography and like acting and like all of those things. Like, are those income streams for authors? Well, like he's an author and they're income streams. So yes, they are.
I mean, I teach writing to kids. I teach art. I teach stage combat, and I consider all of that in support of the writing. And it wasn't, it used to be I made most of my money from the stunt work and the acting. Eventually I figured I could fall down but not be able to get up. And I started, I had sold some stuff, but then I started writing with the thought that I want to be a writer. That's what I want to say as the first thing. And then the other stuff in descending order, and sometimes that's the case, but usually I don't know any writer really that is only making money from writing. They're even the big boys, they teach seminars or they speak, but it's all connected to the writing. Everything I do, I feel, is connected to storytelling. If I'm doing art classes, it's about telling the visual, and if I'm teaching writing, it's of course that. But fight choreography is about telling the story. D'Artagnan has to fight a certain way that he acts, that he is. So it all connects for me. It's very hard. I mean, I think pretty much we all are writer hyphen blob hyphen 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 hyphen,
On top of that, like I don't know any creative person who is just doing one thing. Like I feel like these seminars and like when you do a convention or when you do like anything, like they're trying to box you in. But like I don't know any writer who is not also like other things, who is not an editor or who is not like an artist themselves, or who is not like doing book covers, or who is not like teaching, or is not like have a full-time job as like all of these things. Like we tend to, and I fall into this category sometimes too, of like trying to box like as a writer, like you're a writer. But really, I think that also would behoove you to think about like us to talk about like a creative life, like what we do as creative humans. And fight choreography, while may not be a writing assignment, it is a creative pursuit. And throughout my life, I've been a fashion photographer. I directed movies. I shot. I was a photographer on Capitol Hill. I did all of these things that influence the creativity, but it's all in service, not just to writing, but just to being a creative human.
Yeah, it's all kind of storytelling. I mean, even fight choreography, you're telling a story through these actions. When you take a photograph, you're telling a story through a still image, or when you do a piece of art, same thing. So yeah, I agree. I think it's all in service of the writing and or the creativity of storytelling. And
I think you come back to the idea of income streams, stream being, water being life. Creatively, if I'm stuck on something, sometimes you switch gears. Like I have a friend who, she was stuck. She couldn't write for maybe almost a year or something. And, she'd be talking to me saying, "Oh, I'm not doing anything." And then I said, "You just showed your third painting this month on Facebook to me. What do you mean you're not doing anything creative?" It leaked out in her art. And then eventually she was writing, and then she was painting, and then she was writing. And then, I mean, it really, everything feeds everything else. The writer is a person, and the person gets richer, and then the writing gets richer from that.
Lived experience. Yeah, absolutely. But to go back to like specifically writing, part of income streams is, I don't know anyone, even if they are making a living 100% from a writer, which I don't know anyone I know maybe 3 people who are literally just making a living as an author.
Yeah.
They're not making a living on one series. They're not making a living on one format. They're not making a living, they have audiobooks. They have, even if they're making a living from like one like main series, they have audiobooks and print and large print, and each of those is their own income stream that has their own sort of mechanics built in and where it's popular.
And then it goes from there into the adaptations of it as a film or a radio play or a comic book. And so it trickles down from the original creative work to the different platforms. I didn't mean to cut you off, Bobby. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I run into people a lot of time that ask the question. A lot of people just assume that what you write is the only way. The only way to make that income stream is to sell that thing you write. And while that's part of it, that's, you've heard a lot of examples here, but libraries. I get paid to go speak at libraries and do events at libraries, or other places like that where there's a little income that comes in to come and talk to people, to share your knowledge. If you've taught a class, people probably pay a little money to come take that class, or you get invited to speak at a writers conference. There's generally there's income that way, but there's also things like, ghostwriting, blog writing, writing for websites. There's a lot of different ways that people can channel their creativity into making money. That's not, I wrote a book.
Yeah, what I meant about platforms, I've done business articles. Not that many because I'm a horrible businessman, or I wouldn't be in Jersey. But I've written business articles that actually have paid me probably better than most of my fiction. But like weird things like how to Frankenstein a project into life for your company. Coming at it from the odd angle that a fiction writer can. And I've done a bunch of those. I've sold poetry. Actually for amount of money, for the amount of time put into the wordage, poetry has probably been my most economically successful thing. Mind you, I might only sell 3 a year, so that $15 for that 10 minutes work is not that great. But yeah, and you're saying about teaching class and interacting. I think the other thing a lot of writers do not realize is that they are also, one of the income streams is literally them. Coming from an acting background, I'm incredibly aware that the minute I walk into a convention or the minute I get onto a meeting like this, I am selling the product that is this creative package. James Patterson is not really selling his words anymore. He hasn't been for a long time. He's selling the concept of a James Patterson, or and I think, that J.K. Rowling, you buy the name, you don't buy the book. When you get the book, then you read it. But if I'm looking for something, Bobby Nash is the name now, essentially bigger than the book titles. That is,
one hopes.
Well, I mean, that's the goal, I think, of most writers. Giant block letters and then the name of the new book on the bottom.
Right, because if you think about it, most people, when you ask them, what books do you read? They don't go, well, I read, and start throwing out titles. They go, I read Michael Connelly books.
Exactly.
I read Stephen King books. I read, you're right. So this is part of the things you're selling. Yeah.
And and I think that when we talk about income streams for authors, we also have to talk about, there's a couple of breaks. So there's the consistent income, and there's the inconsistent income, and there's the consistent income that you control, which is these are books that I am writing, and I can put them out, and I know roughly what they're going to make because it's in a series. There is consistent income that you have no idea what it's going to make. I'm putting out a new book in a new series, and I have no idea really. I kind of can guess, but I have no idea what it's going to do. There is inconsistent income that you can control. Okay, I'm going every 3 months. I kind of speak at the Authors Learning Center, and I've been doing it for a little over probably close to a year now. And so it's okay, that's relatively consistent income, but I don't control them bringing me back. And so there are all these things that so sometimes I'll get a big check from someone, and I'm oh, that's nice. I consider my Ingram Spark account just whatever I get is found money. It's oh, look, I made $100. Cool, this is great. This is extra money that I had no idea was coming.
Yeah. Well, it's also too, I think part of the writer's job is to keep looking. The new thing that's happening now is apps There are app companies that are optioning books. And a lot of new writers don't think about the fact that you write a story, you sell it to one place, but then you've got second rights, and you've got third rights, and audio rights, and app rights, and film adaptation rights.
That's one of the things that I hate the most when I talk to writers, and I'm like, what did you give them the rights to? And they're like, I don't know. I look at their contract, like, you give all of it away. Like you just gave worldwide exclusive rights to this company, and like you think they're gonna release your book in Turkey, or like, I don't know. Like I could though do it, like, and then all these, yes, to just solidify your point, or like put rubber, or like second it. There's so many rights that you don't think about, and there are rights that when you give away something like worldwide rights or in perpetuity, like you're literally giving away rights that like don't exist yet, like giving away fiction app rights which didn't exist 5 years ago.
Yes, and that may be the real future. It's really hard to know. I mean, one of my idols, not just because I like his writing, but in terms of how he approached the world, is Edgar Rice Burroughs. He invented syndication. He invented selling movies separate from the original rights. He invented selling. He literally was the first one to say, no, if you want to put it on the radio, you got to pay me different than if you take it for a movie screen. It was astounding. And it was because he was such a failed businessman. And he was like, this is my last business. I'm not going to fail at it. And it's hard, you want to be Mr. Creative, but the hard lesson is, in order to have the time to be Mr. Creative, you've got to be a businessman about it. The art of writing is so separate from the business of it. It's a hard thing to learn. I'm a lousy businessman. I'll be the first to admit it. But
I wish I had known earlier. I wish I had because when I started, there was no do it yourself. Do it yourself means, that was in the day where if you did a print on demand book, it was because you weren't good enough to get hired anywhere else. So I went in, when I started writing, it was I've got to get hired. I've got to find an agent. I've got to get hired by a publisher. Obviously that's not the world we live in anymore. So I wish I had the foresight to take more business classes, because same thing. I learn a lot of this business stuff when I screw something up, and learn, I should have done that,
I was a freelance actor forever. And while I kind of had a concept of it, anyone who tells you they got the publishing world figured out is even more delusional than people who tell you they have Hollywood figured out. So I'm still learning. I'm still going to seminars and still reading stuff on, well, how do I negotiate that? And how do I deal with that? Because it's very easy for writers to be taken, because please read my story is really a hard, where we write because otherwise we'd be standing in a corner telling ourselves the story. We write because we want other people to read it, and we want to get it to as many places as possible. And it's real easy to overlook the fact that the craftsman is worth his price for his craft. That's the hardest lesson I've had to teach myself, that sometimes it's good to go for a low word rate because people will see it. And other times you got to say, no, they're going to look at this book and go, no, anybody who's in that can't be that good. And it's going to hurt more. Sometimes even if it pays more. Those are the really hard decisions. Like, do I want to be in that magazine because that magazine has a bad reputation? Or do I want to be in one that pays less but has a better reputation? And I mean, those are not beginner decisions, but as you try to climb up, or does it go down Dante's Inferno in the rings, you got to ask yourself a lot of hard questions, because it really is a business. It's a hard business.
Yes. Learning to say.
And the things you see today are things that will pay off in like 10 years. Because I talk about this all the time. My first title I ever did, like brought out, was called Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter. If you told me 10 years ago that I'd be still selling that book, I would be like, I think you were nuts. I was like, no, I wrote this book. It took like a week to write and then a year to produce, and then it was done. But like really those things that you're making and the anthology pieces that you're submitting and the editors that you're meeting, because like that's how I deal with the anthologies. Like if it's an editor I like, I'm in. If it's not, I will not do it anymore. So but like when you're thinking about income streams, I'm trying to keep tying it back into income streams, right? So you're thinking about income streams, like so many young authors say, well, I don't have money for editing, or I don't have money for a good cover. And really, I don't, like the cover is less of a thing, or like the blurb being good is less of a thing, because like you can always change that. And yes, you can always edit the book, but like I've never opened a book that had a bad cover but was great inside and been like, oh well, if only they had a good cover. I would be bummed because like the cover either didn't match or it was just ugly, or like I wish they had done a better job. But like I never judged the writing once I opened the book. Now judging the book by its cover before you open the book, that's different. But like once you open the book and like those words are going to be with you forever. And if you do a good job making those words the best words that you can make, and I'm not saying do 500 edits. I'm saying like hire an editor and hire a proofreader to like make the book as good as you can, because you will be either selling it still in 10 years or re-editing in 10 years. And about 50% of my friends go back to their original work and are re-editing it like now, like literally like right now. They're like, I really want to put a 5th book in this series, but it means I literally have to go back and re-edit the first 4 books because they're not as good as I want them to be. Or like I really took a lot of time when I started, and I hired the right people and I edited the right things. And I'm not saying my first books are as good as my new books, but like I'm still proud of them. Like I can, like all I have to do is recover them and like maybe change the back matter and front matter, and it's done. So you really, when you're thinking about income streams, you have to think like, okay, I'm going to self-edit this book. But like, am I going to have 5 books in this series? Like, am I really going to like what happens in 5 years when I'm a better writer and this first book is garbage? Like, am I going to come back to this book? Or like, so you have to really, and also you have to think like, okay, so should I even write this book, or should I write like a book I don't care about as much? So it's all these things of like, when you think about income streams, each series, each part of a book, and each installment of a book is not so much a chance to make more money, it's a chance to ruin the whole book. Like there's a chance, like to me, when I think about like, oh, this is the 10th book in a series, which I'm working on now, I'm like, oh, am I going to break the universe? I don't worry about like people liking it. I worry, oh my God, is it going to break everything?
Yeah, it's never too late to fail. But I'm one of those people that I thought, even working, I've done a lot of terrible low budget movies, but I've never been ashamed of my work in them. I will never say, well, no, I did the absolute best, I did the absolute best job at each thing I did with all the skill I had at the time. And I feel that same way about the writing. If it takes you, re-edit, get, a second reader and a third reader, what goes out from that computer has to be the best you can do at that moment.
And it doesn't have to go out.
Yes, well, yeah, it doesn't have to go out until it is the best.
Or ever.
Yeah, well, it has to go out.
No, I mean, like, you could just abandon a project, because that's a thing. Like
you can, but if it's going out, it's got to be the best it can be.
Yeah,
and the thing is that, you may come back for it in 5 years and say, well, I want to just give it a light dusting. I'm a little better with my run-on sentences than I was 5 years ago, or whatever. That's actually another draft. It's not even re-editing; it's another draft. But I agree with you. It's got to go out. If people are having trouble getting there, it's the same as if you did a drawing that was murky, and they can't see what the lines are. They can't, it has to be the clearest, best it can be at any given moment, because that's where the stream is. To go back to that, it's the work is the beginning of all the streams, of all the platforms it can be on, and all of the ways people will pay you money to look at that story and see those characters and talk to that, ask the author to come because they love the book so much they want him to speak at the garden club. It goes back to the word is the word is the word. It has to be the best it can be.
Yeah. And if you're doing it yourself, if you are your publisher, What formats do you put the book out in? Those are questions you have to ask yourself. Are you going to just do ebooks? Well, what about paperbacks? What about collected editions? What about audiobooks? You can have one book sold in 5 or 6 different formats. It's a little work to do it, but you have audiences that just buy audiobooks. You have audiences that only read ebooks. If your preference may be I prefer paperback, but you don't want to cut your audience off. Put it out there where they can get to it, and you'll find that each book will sell at different rate in different places. Certainly different areas. I noticed the audiobooks sell better in larger cities than they do elsewhere because more people don't drive. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff that putting out there gives you different, more money coming in as opposed to just saying, here's my ebook and I'm done, or here's my paperback. There's multiple ways for that money to come in.
And to speak to that, I have a friend who will get either the paper book and then get the audio, so when she can drive, she can listen, or the other way around. And I've known a number of authors that they do, like, if you get both, you get. And it's finding ways to put crack in the popcorn for the pigeon.
Well, and then there's merchandising on top of all of that. If you want to put your, say you're very proud of your book cover, you put your book covers on other things. Okay,
you got those behind you too.
Yeah, you make posters
behind you
sell. You do, little things like that. I had some glasses with etched glasses that I sell at conventions, so there are other things that if people, especially if it's, once you've got people that like the thing you've created, they want more of it, and so they like things like the mugs or the T-shirts there's a lot of those that can.
Now we're getting into a thing that I really should touch on, which is not all good income streams are good income streams. Like, they're not all good. Like, they're not all, like, just because you can make T-shirts, does not mean you should be making T-shirts. Like, just because you can make cups does not mean you should be making cups. I'm not saying whether you should or should not. Like, this depends on your audience. And like, if your book is not, I don't think you should just make an audiobook because you can. Like, it's expensive, and like, you should. For me, I don't make most of my books in audiobooks because, like, I don't see the sales to justify like spending $4,000 on an audiobook. That's not saying you should not do that. But for me, for developing an income stream, like, it has to start with like profitability first. And some people are not like this. Some people just want a T-shirt and like, they don't care if it makes, like, I have plenty of friends just like, I want this to be whatever it is. And like, I'm going to spend the money on it just to spend the money on it. But, on some level, there has to be a core that is funneling to the rest of your business. Like, there has to be.
I was going to say, but, and to that, some of that is part of the branding. Some of that is, I know I don't make any monies on these bookmarks, or I don't make any money on the T-shirts that I sell at cost at conventions. But everyone who wears those T-shirts at every other convention has my book cover on it. And so it becomes part of the general branding for what you do. And, and sometimes that's the profit is not the direct profit, but it's that one step down or 2 step down profit, because it is about branding. I mean, that's the big thing. We are what we sell, unless we're erotic authors working under different names. Call me Velveteen Jones. So that part of it is visibility, and then it's profitability, and then there's that. What's the phrase I'm looking for? Risk for return. And that's what you're talking about. Sometimes it makes no sense to do an audiobook of a book that wouldn't be a good audiobook, but when you get enough people clamoring for it, then you go, okay, now that's a direction to go in.
I see. Well, I guess I see a lot of times where someone asked me to do an audiobook, like one person who read their book, and they're like, now I'm gonna go do an audiobook. And like, it may work out for you. Like, I did a audio drama of one of my books last year, and like, it wasn't a great seller book. I just thought it'd make a good audio drama, and I was like, whatever, I have $1,000, like, I'm just gonna do it because I want to do it. And like, I'm not saying to not, but like your whole business can't be that. Like,
Right.
Well, there's
Yeah.
also you
Yeah.
also have to you also have to like there's multiple ways to do these things. So, you're talking about spending money. There are ways to do audiobooks without spending $4,000. There are
Yeah.
ways to do it where now one thing I will say about the pandemic, I have noticed, there was an audiobook spike. More people are stuck at home. And so to the point where like my audio sales were outstripping ebook sales for a while. So, but it's one of those things too. You just never know until you do it. But I certainly don't put everything I've ever done straight to audio, but certain titles, lend themselves to that. And once you hook up with a narrator that gets that style, putting the right book and the right narrator together is very
Yeah.
important. So,
Some people will follow the branding of a narrator.
right,
There are
right.
narrators who people will
That's
buy the
true.
books that person narrated.
Yeah.
Jim
There's a
Dale,
reason. There's a reason I don't narrate my books. They would be awful, But I have the narrator for this, like the snow books, for example. Stewart is fantastic, and I do same thing. People that follow him are following him to the books. So
yeah,
so that teamwork helps with.
and it's also it ameliorates over time. You say you spent the $1,000 on the book this last year, thought it would be a good thing, and it may be, but it may be a good thing that will make you that money in 2 years when that cycle comes around, when that subject matter for the book suddenly becomes popular, or the next book in the series attracts people back to it and they go to the audiobook.
Oh, yeah. So I had two nonfiction books that I wrote and I put out, and like they didn't sell that well. They were like, I didn't put any effort into them. And like last year I was like, hey, does anyone like want these books? Like just any publisher, like I will just like they won't work for, like I'm not doing anything with them. I want to get out of this kind of business. And I had a publisher come up and like, I will rebrand all of your stuff. Just like I'll take all of it and like and like put it into the new series and new other stuff, and I was like, oh cool, that's a thing that I wrote 7 years ago, 5 years ago, and like it just finally like really started to do something now. And I think that for me, every series is like 2 years to like start. Like I started a series in 2018, and like I literally just launched it like 2 weeks ago. So there is that sort of velocity of recovery, but you have to think about it on a per series basis. Like, but I think that for me, the biggest income stream is like this is what funnels into everything else. And like for me, the income stream is like when I launch a book on Kickstarter or comic on Kickstarter, like that literally funds the rest of my business. And like I think to be a long-term creative that can do this. I don't want to say successful because like success one year may be unsuccessful the next year, but like there needs to be like a core of when I am in trouble, like or like when I need an infusion of cash, like this is what I can do. And for me, that when I think of income streams, there are all these little income streams, but they're not all reliable. Like every they're not consistently reliable. And so really for me, the first step in trying to figure out like what it means to be a writer or like make a career, like not be a writer, because you can be a writer and like never make a dollar on it. Like you could like, but if you want to start making like income for it, I think you really need to spend some time figuring out where the reliable source of your income will come from on a consistent basis. Is it this one series? Is it comics? Is it audiobooks? Like anything can balloon out. But at the beginning, you kind of got a scatter shot everywhere. But over time, the income streams do tend to narrow because like you don't want to write mystery novels anymore. And so you just don't. And so like, yeah, sure. Like I sell a couple mystery novels every year, but like whatever, like it's not a thing. Like it's not like a piece of my business. And so you start getting new ones, you start getting rid of old ones, but you start seeing that like some of those streams become maybe not a flood, but they become whatever the next step up from a river. It's just a lake, a river, like whatever the thing is. And that allows you to break off more income streams.
And I think too that it's creating content. Once you have content you have created, you can then have it to pull up. I just sent out a reprint story to somebody that that content will continue to make me money. It and like you were saying about, oh, I'm not doing anything with these books. You want these books? Sure, rebrand them. That may blow up next year to where the publisher comes back to you and says, look, you need to do 2 more books in the series for me. And here's the numbers. Because you've done it. You already put, it's the meniscus. It's breaking that surface tension. And once you have, you just really don't know where that stream will go. Yes, he's using water metaphors. So I think that all of it comes down to do it and keep doing it, but also not just from the heart, from the brain. You got to look at things and say, where does it make most sense? And how can I keep doing this? For me, it was always going back to the sword. I'd always, if I wasn't making money in something else, I would do another Ren Fair. I would, choreograph another Three Musketeers. And that kept the other business going. I never lost money teaching sword. And as a writer, it's been short stories. I've made more with my short stories than my novels so far. I'm just entering a new period where I think that's going to change. But it's just keeping creating is the hardest thing. So it's finding a level that will allow you to keep creating so you can find those other streams that you can. I mean, when I went to art school, the one thing that the instructor said the very first day was, if you want to be an artist, leave now because it's too hard. But if you need to be an artist, nothing we can do will discourage you. So we'll do our best to help you be the best you can be. And I think that's it. It's, you got to really be addicted to this stuff. You got to really want to do it because it's easier to sell shoes,
You make a lot more money doing literally anything else. And the big hits are just like, even the people that make millions of dollars could probably have made billions of dollars doing something else. Like, it's just, but you said something really important, Teal, which was you have to find ways to keep the creative process going. And the thing that I always come across when people talk about like that this stuff is icky, like the sales and the marketing and the income streams and all of that stuff, is like the thing that stops most people is they run out of runway. They have 5 months or 5 years to like get a thing, and they just can't break through, and then they give up, or they stop, or they turn directions. And so all of these income streams, or all of the things we're talking about, are ways to extend your runway. And really, I've now been doing this for a long time, and I can say that like almost everything that I've ever done has been just to extend the runway for a couple more months or a couple more years. And and these income streams come in, and honestly, like I'm going to finish this Kickstarter today. I'm like, oh, cool. That's 2 more months of keeping the revenue going. And then that'll get me to the next one. Like that'll get me to the next one. That'll get me to the next one. And sometimes like it'll be a speaking thing that I'm doing. I'm doing a talk for Author Learning Center again, like this month. And like, I'm like, cool, this like a few $100 there, like that helps, Sometimes people buy a course and like that helps. And oftentimes you don't know where that money's coming from. Sometimes it's Amazon and like that, and all of that stuff helps. But it's really about like, how do I get to the next book? Because like, for me, it is like an addiction. Like I just can't do it. Like I used to be a sales manager and like I could go and do sales and make like high 6 figures or mid 6 figures instead of low 6 figures. And like, this work is so hard that so much of it is like, okay, how do I take this one piece that I made and extend the brand and like make money on it in 20 different ways so that I can go and make the other thing. Because that's the great thing about making audiobooks. It's like, hey, I made this book. Now you go do the audiobook for it, and like I'm gonna go do something else, and then like it'll be an audio. Or like I do a lot of comics, and the same thing. It's like, hey, I wrote this script. Now artists go, and I'm gonna go write something else. And it allows you to do the other thing. Whereas a lot of artists, like I've written 6 books this year already, and I wrote 9 last year. And most people write 1 a year. Like they're lucky they write 1 a year or 2 a year. And so the income streams that I think we're talking about are ways that like you can make one book, you can make less books if you
have
extend
other,
out the
yeah,
brand for that book and do more things with it, because you don't have to break the story. Like if you take that and make an audiobook, so you're not breaking the story again. If you make if you make a comic, you're not breaking the story again. Like if you make an audio drum, like the story that like pieces of it have to change to work in new mediums sometimes, but like the core of the story is the core of the story. And like to me, that's the hardest part. The hardest part is getting the whole thing written down.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. It really is. I love what you said about it's just extending the runway. It's like, if I can just sell one more pint of blood, I can have enough food to last for another 4 weeks. Or I mean, it really is that. It really is that for all of us. And it's keeping for me, one of the things that's kept me from failing, that's just thrown up my hands and walking away from it, aside that I can switch, I can draw for a little while, is that the people who have evidenced faith in me, who have liked my work, have made me think, well, they're not idiots. So if I'm going to respect them, I got to keep going. And, having writing community has helped. That's and which actually also comes back to extending the streams. The writers are the writers who let you know, hey, such and such has just opened up an anthology, or this magazine's about to launch and they're looking for stories of, and so it becomes an emotional cycle as well as a commercial cycle, and it really is intertwined. It's really hard, it's funny. I wrote 6 books last year, so I totally get it.
I think we are the uncommon ones, though. Like
Well,
it's uncommon to write that many things.
no, it's true, but I'm a pulp moron. I'm just a complete addict. If I'm not writing, I feel it's. I sometimes go, there's got to be something wrong with me. If I don't write for 3 or 4 days, I start to get twitchy.
Me too.
And
I made it to 3 days after my last book before I had to start writing again. I was like, that's double the amount of time it usually takes me.
Yeah, it really is. It's an odd thing, and my word count per day has dropped from like 10 or 15 years ago, but it's still consistent. And because it's consistent, at the end of 60 days, there's another book or another collection of short stories worth of stuff, or and then I'll re-edit older. That's my thing. If I can't write today, I can edit today, and and it goes on. And I'm really trying to get better at doing multimedia. When I grow up, I want to be Bobby Nash someday. I mean, it's like you're like a Twilight Zone episode. Every time I turn around, there's Bobby Nash.
I try.
Yeah, and it's true. And that's part of it is I need to engage that commercial part of myself more, because it feels good to type, to make my words, but then I gotta Jonathan Mayberry's formula is he writes for 50 minutes and there's 10 minutes of media, and then writes for 50 minutes and then 10 minutes of media. And I'm not that mechanical that I could do that, but I've been trying to get better at it, because
mine's not quite as regimented. It's minutes to minutes, but it's a similar thing. I write for a while, and when you kind of get to that point, it's like, okay, I need a break. But before I get up and do anything, let me pop over here, do a little of that, take care of some of that business. Then I'll go take a little break, come back, write a little more. And so, but you're juggling a lot of things too. I mean, being a writer, especially if you're also a publisher, there's a lot of juggling involved. You're doing, and very similar to like when you were acting, because you do this too, because you act in something that doesn't come out for 6 months, 8 months, a year.
Yeah, I've got like 4 things coming out that.
Right. So by the time it comes out, you're 3 or 4 projects down the road, but now you've got to stop also to do promotion for that project. And writing is no different. Book comes out I wrote last year or 6 months ago or whatever. You're promoting that. You're putting the touches on this. You're talking to a publisher about the next project. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of balls in the air that you have to kind of keep track of. And that's where the things I've learned about business have come in handy, because when I started, there's no way I could have I didn't have the knowledge to handle this. And like I said, I kind of wish I'd have known earlier. I would have taken business classes, but I've learned a lot from doing that of how to make all those things work. Because even though it's a project I worked on a year ago, still promoting it is important, and
Yeah.
Because again, those are, it's new to the people that are hearing you talk about it. So you still got to sell it as if it's,
Many years ago, NBC had a campaign for their summer reruns. It was like, if you haven't seen it before, it's new to you.
New to you, yeah.
That's the thing that I don't like. That goes back to the thing I was saying before about like that you sell it. You make it once and you sell it forever. Like that person does not know that this was 20 books ago.
Yes.
Like they don't know that like you have like 5 other series. Like what they know is like they're getting the series or the book or the podcast or whatever that they're getting that thing.
Yes.
And like if they like that thing, then they will expand out and like maybe they'll become a super fan, or maybe they'll just keep following the podcast or following the other thing, or like maybe they'll just forget about you in like 5 minutes. But they know like you have that moment to get them.
Right.
And the income streams is also about splintering out, so you find more people and get more people into your universes.
Yeah. And it's very important too what you said, when someone discovers anything you've done, because they're not always going to discover the thing you just put out. Again, we've been doing this a while. So I run into people all the time that have just discovered Evil Ways, which was published in 2005. It's new to them. They're excited to talk about it. I'm excited to listen to them and respond. Yeah. I never want to be the guy that goes, that's the old stuff. Because to them, it's not the old stuff. It's new. I've just discovered this. I like this. So yes, and we have to keep all of that kind of stuff in our head too, of what we've done, and it's great. I love it when people find stuff and they're excited about it, because it gets me excited about it.
Yes.
Because
brings you right back to that time.
Yeah.
Yes. And somebody once said that the trick is not to get 10,000 fans, but to get 1,000 fans who will buy everything you write. And the balance of having a long-term career is finding the space between those two, so that you have a certain number that will always carry along with you, and then you'll always bring in new fresh blood, like Dracula recruiting.
Well, the other thing is that just because someone likes a podcast doesn't mean they may love books more. Like, so like by having these income streams and varying your formats, like I like podcasts, I read more books by a massive factor. And so like by having these other income streams and having these people who you're meeting and you're finding and you're bringing into your universes, like you might be finding someone on a podcast, or like you may find someone listening to this, I don't know, like, and they'll come in and they'll be like voracious readers. They'll be like casual podcast fans, but they'll be like voracious readers. And so part of it is like you kind of get the best of both worlds when you think about multiple income streams. So you get money, but you also get marketing. You get to expand your marketing and expand your reach, which is like the secret to getting more fans and finding that 1,000 true fans is expanding your marketing and reach. So like when you have multiple income streams.
Yeah, they don't know you're alive. They can't support your Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
Plus, it's not just doing stuff like this. We're talking about writing. I did another panel for this very convention the other night, where we talked about Indiana Jones for an hour. But at the beginning and end of that panel, we introduced ourselves. If we were to, now we don't do it as much on the video, but if we were in person at this convention and they introduced us, we'd all be sitting at the table and we'd say, "Hi, I'm Bobby." You'd hold up a book, and so there's, even though you're there to talk about a movie that the audience loves and you love, they know you write something because you've mentioned it at the beginning and end of the panel.
Well, we are the brand. Yeah. And somebody was talking about one of them about what do they think about doing aliases and pseudonyms? And it's interesting, Jonathan Mayberry's take on it. I keep referring to him because I just took a seminar with him. Is that I work too damn hard to get this brand. I'm not going to go under some other name for them to find me. It's too much work to to make this brand happen. That's one of the reasons when I started, I went by TJ Glenn for a lot of stuff. But when I went to get my very first website, tjglenn.com was a construction company in California. So then I said, I'm going to use my whole name because ain't nobody going to forget Teal James Glenn because it's too freaking weird. Really, I've never met anybody with that as a first name before. And, but as I go on, I am indeed building this. And, I did a Western once under a pseudonym because I thought people who read Westerns wouldn't necessarily want to read, the same guy who did science fiction stories or whatever. And like a lead balloon, and I'm never doing that again. I'm never doing that again. Because then you have to start from zero to build up that momentum you were talking about, Russell, about, it takes a while. They say the marketing says it's the 7th time they hear your name that they might buy something.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's really more like the 14th time now.
Yeah, well, it's like Candyman. It's Bobby Nash. And, but it's true. It's, the more you're there, the more you're in the game, the more chance you can win the game.
Yeah.
And it's just
or just keep going, or just keep playing it. Like I think that we talk about winning the game a lot, and like I think that when people become authors, they think of J.K. Rowling and they think of like they think of like Michael Connelly and they think of James Patterson and like you're not winning that game. Like you're just not winning that game. The game is continuing to play. Like the game is passing go and getting $200.
Yeah. But there was a point. All those names you mentioned were doing exactly what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Well, you can't win the game if you don't play the game. But you have to love the game. Like you have to love the game. Like we talked about. We talked about doing all these different things and like immersing yourself in them. But part of immersing yourself in them is like realizing you might hate them. Like I hate serialized fiction. Like I just do not like doing it. Like I have tried it. I've tried having like a Patreon. I have my own app right now. I do not like it. I do not like how it makes me feel. I do not like what it does to me. This is nothing against other people that have them, but if you're not immersing yourself in it, like immersing yourself in these things and different income streams is not just so you know what you want. It's so you know what you don't. Because I was just talking this with a friend yesterday. It's like being a creative human is about leaving yourself open. Like it's not about taking one path. It's not about like doing one thing. It's about being able to move between different stuff as like you learn bits and bobs about stuff and how to put things together. And like doing different, you might learn that you love Patreon. You may freaking kill it, like Sean McGuire, and make like $14,000 on that thing, and be willing to write an hour, like 80,000 word book every month for like her audience, and like that's awesome.
Yeah.
But like you don't know if you don't try, and you don't know if like an income, and you don't know if large print books are going to be great for you until you do them. Like you don't know if you're going to like doing library, like speaking engagements, or like my friend who's just tours Los Angeles schools with like her, like with all of her books. But you have to, like, income streams is about, like, it's the ancillary byproduct, I think, of trying to expand your brand, like of trying to expand your reach. And like, you just end up with, like, if you're expanding your reach, people will call you to speak at conventions.
Yeah.
And like, that will like give you an income stream that like from building your reach of the brand. So it's like, I think that there is intentionality that you need to have when you're thinking about income streams, but a lot of it is like, I need to make rent this month, and like I should probably speak or like do a course or like finish this book and get it off to my publisher so I can get the next part of my like advance, or like whatever it is. Like, so much of it is saying I hate this stuff, but trying it, and then I don't want to do it. But also then finding out what works for you, and then just understanding you are not going to win the game. Like, you might be James Patterson, but the odds are the vastly long like you are not going to be James Patterson, and you really do have to love it. You have to love the work. You have to love the grinding. You have to love the like more than the marketing. You have to love the work itself. And if you do that and you can find ways to stay in the game using different income streams, like whether it's like having a job or whatever it is, sword fighting or acting or publishing or editing, to just stay in the game and be able to have enough time for your writing, like you won't win the game, but you'll play the game. And like the fun is in playing the game, not in winning the game.
See, I think that to me that enjoying the journey is winning the game, because it's like Zen. If you say, I want to be on the top of the pyramid, you won't. But if you're just doing the work and loving the work and putting in the time, even in the stuff that you don't necessarily love because you love the general, it will come to you or not. You know, Gilbert and Sullivan hated doing operettas. They had no idea that was going to be the success until it was, and then there it was. You know, you never know what's going to hit. You never know what you're going to be popular for. But if you love the process, which I really do, and the trick is, like you said, try the edges of the process that you don't like as much. It's like when I was a personal trainer for years, and usually the exercise you hated doing was the one that you needed to extend yourself. So that, you know, the parts of the business that you might hate or that you dislike the most, because I don't think you really can hate anything that helps you write, is the part you might need to learn more. I have no freaking clue why anybody would deal with Instagram, but I got to learn it. You know, Twitter, I have a presence in, but I swear to God, I still don't understand it. It's like, why would anybody care? But you got to learn it because it's part of the creature. It's part of the whole. Nothing you love doing in life is 100% wonderful. There's, eating pizza, sometimes you burn the roof of your mouth. You still have to make money to buy the pizza. You still have to carry the pizza. You know, I mean, there's nothing that is 100% joy. There's always some work involved. But like you said, if you love the journey, there definitely will be times you go, I can't do this anymore. And, maybe that's the day you take a break and just watch a movie or read a book or, do a drawing or go to the beach.
Well, it never fails that once you start treating this like a job, like any job, you start looking for ways to not do the job.
Yeah.
Well, I was having dinner with my friends a couple of weeks ago, but no, a couple of days ago. God, time is so weird. But they were like talking about, like, they make they make good money at their job, and but they hate their jobs. Both of them. They're like, one of them, he said, like, I would get up at 7:30 on Saturday because that's my time. Like, I'm not gonna let the fact that I'm tired take my time away from me. And I was like, oh, gotta make anywhere near what you make. But like, I wake up and like I enjoy the day that I have. If I took that, like I woke up today at 6, I wrote for 3 hours, I got on the bike and like I hung out with my dogs. Like that was my day. It's like I was like, I feel like I'm retired now, so that's cool. So like really you have to I love the thing that you say. I always love it when people talk about, like, if you want it, just stop. Like, just stop. Like, it's okay. Like, you don't, like, you can try it and hate it. It's okay. Like, but like, you've really got to be compulsed to do it. You've really got to say, I can't do another thing, because it's so hard. It's so hard to put yourself out there. Like, I don't think any of us are naturally like comfortable with people listening to us talk for an hour about anything. I don't think any of us are naturally comfortable like writing emails to people and like putting ourselves out there. But that's the work. Like that's the work that it takes. And if you don't love if you don't love the people reacting to your work, like people reading it, and like, then that is what gets me up in the morning to do all of the stuff that I hate, because I know that all leads to people reading my work.
Yeah, it's really part of it. I mean, the last straight job I had as a cubicle monkey was for a law firm as a receptionist when I was 19 years old. And at the end of nobody had lasted at that job for more than 6 days. I was there 6 months. And on a Friday, because I didn't care because I was going to be into my art. I was Mr. Artist guy at the time. And so I had that to go to. But I went out on a Friday and I realized I spent my entire salary to go to have a good dinner, go to a Broadway show, and hit Coliseum Books and got some really cool illustrated books. And I realized I'd essentially spent my week's salary, and I went in Monday and quit. And everything I've done since then has been some form of freelance, because I realized that I needed to do the creative stuff more than I needed to have, filet mignon, and but I do love the process. And yes, sometimes it's really painful. Art can be really painful. Writing can be really painful, but not doing it is even more painful.
Yeah. Well, we are at time, unfortunately. I mean, I could talk another hour or listen to you guys talk. This has been fabulous. And we didn't even get to Kickstarter, which I had, and we've got the Kickstarter king on here, Russell Nolte, and didn't get to talk about Kickstarter, but maybe we can do that.
Just another income stream. But
yeah,
I'm happy to talk about Kickstarter another time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I may have to finagle a way to do this again so we can talk Kickstarter, because I need to know. I've done it once. I'm gonna do it again, for sure. So let's go around the table, the virtual table, and just tell everybody who you are and where they can find your stuff. Bobby.
I'm Bobby Nash. You can find me at bobbynash.com is my website. There's links to everything. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Patreons, wherever. I've got one. And I'm all over the place.
And Russell?
I am a USA Today bestselling author. My main series is called The Godsverse Chronicles. There are going to be 11 books out starting when January comes around. I also do books like Ichabod Jones' Monster Hunter and anthologies like Cthulhu is Hard to Spell. You can find all of that at russellnolte.com.
And when's your Kickstarter over? It's close, right?
Like 3 hours from now.
Okay. So by the time anybody sees this, it'll be long over with.
Yeah, but if you email me, I can send you the link to pre-order the books from them.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Teal.
And I'm Teal James Glenn. You could find me at theurbanswashbuckler.com or on Facebook at Teal James Glenn, no spaces. And the newest book that just came out is The Chronicles of the Skull Mask from Bold Venture Press. And I have the first of a series from Airship 27, John Shadows, The Killing Shadows, which is a thriller series. And my last book, A Cowboy in Carpathia, a Bob Howard adventure, won the Pulp Factory Award for Best Novel for 2021. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
And this has been an incredible delight. Thank you, James, for asking me. It's really nice to talk to you, Bobby and Russell. I hope we meet in the real one of these days, if indeed you're not a creation of the Matrix.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I am James Palmer. I write science fiction and pulp adventure. You can find my stuff at jamespalmerbooks.net. I can't show you it in my books right now because my laptop is sitting on them.
You see, the work supports you.
Yes.
Literally and figuratively. Well, thanks a lot, guys. This was fun.
This is really a delight.
This is a good time. Yep.
It's great. Thank you for having me.